A new report shows 35% of Canadians are driving to the US less. Air travel also fell by 25% this summer compared to last year. At the same time, Air Canada cut US routes but added 28 international ones. The message is simple. Canadians still travel and spend, just not in America. Why have millions of Canadians turned away from the United States? Tourism is more than vacations. It is a sign of how countries feel. When neighbors stop visiting, it means the relationship is cooling down. The question is this short anger, or the start of a breakup? Not long ago, driving from Toronto to Buffalo felt like a weekend picnic. People went to shop, buy gas, and eat burgers with their families. But now the parking lots are empty and border roads are silent. In August 2025, Canadian car trips to the US dropped by 35%. For every 10 cars crossing the Peace Bridge, now there are fewer than 7. Gas stations, restaurants, and malls are losing business fast. The reasons are many. Tariffs and political fights keep people away. The weak Canadian dollar makes a cheap burger feel bitterly expensive. Border towns feel this loss the most. They once relied on steady Canadian tourists for quick income. One Michigan motel owner said weekends used to be packed with Ontario cars. Now his parking lot looks more like a graveyard than a business. But Canadians have not stopped traveling at all. They are choosing Europe, the Caribbean, and South America instead. The money still flows, but it now bypasses the United States. This is not falling demand. It is falling trust in America. In a way, Canadians have already built their own wall. Their wallets and choices now keep them away from the US. Flights also show this change. Canadian trips to the US by air fell 25% this summer. Air Canada did not try to rebuild US flights. Instead, it opened 28 new routes overseas. Again, the message is clear. Canadians love travel but avoid the United States. One family canceled Disney World and booked a Caribbean cruise instead. The child sipped coconut water on a ship, not wearing Mickey Mouse ears. America lost more than one plane ticket. Hotels lost bookings, restaurants lost tables, and airlines lost revenue. New habits form quickly, and that is the bigger problem. Once Canadian families discover Europe or the Caribbean feels better, why return? This may not be a dip but the start of a permanent change. And the story does not stop with travel. It is also showing up in shopping. For years, Canadian stores sold plenty of American whiskey and wine. Now those shelves are changing quickly. US wine sales in Canada dropped by 62% in one quarter. Big stores like Loblaw replaced dozens of American products with 100 Canadian ones. This is not just business. It is also about pride. Canadians are now saying, "Buy Canadian," with their wallets. Once shoppers switch brands, they rarely go back. One Ottawa man joked, "I'll drink Canadian rye for life." But behind the joke is a change in habit. And that change goes beyond alcohol. It is also affecting books, TV, and culture. Sales of Canadian authors rose 25% this year. CBC Gem streaming grew 34% with shows like Murdoch Mysteries and Heartland. Canadians are choosing their own stories instead of American ones. This is about identity, not just entertainment. People want to support their own culture, not their neighbors. Once a generation grows up with Canadian shows and authors, habits change. They will not feel the same pull toward Hollywood or US sitcoms. That is a real loss of American soft power. In Montreal, one family canceled Netflix for CBC Gem. Their child knows Canadian characters, not American superheroes. This may look small, but it matters for the future. Culture is more than entertainment. It shapes memory, pride, and daily life. Once those habits change, it is very hard to turn back. If even culture, once America's strongest power, is being rejected, what will America lose? Culture is about feelings. Let's look at trade numbers. Here the damage is more serious. A 2% drop sounds small. But in US-Canada trade, it means $5 billion gone. That money could build a new airport or pay thousands of workers for 1 year. But it disappeared simply because Canada decided to move in a different direction. While Canada's exports to the US fell, exports to the UK rose by 63%. Exports to Europe also climbed by 26%, building new and stronger trade connections abroad. The UK even passed China, becoming Canada's second-largest trade partner after America. This quiet but big change surprised Washington. America's top position was no longer secure. Think of it simply. An Ontario lumber mill once shipped wood to Detroit every week. Now it signs contracts with Liverpool. The planks no longer cross the US border. They cross the ocean instead. Families in Michigan now face shortages and higher prices. When supply chains break, who suffers most? Not politicians, but middle-class American families. Ohio and Michigan depend heavily on border trade. Losing goods and tourists is a double hit. A restaurant losing customers is painful. But a factory losing contracts hurts the entire town. People say, when Canada sneezes, America catches a cold. Today it feels like a fever. Yet newspapers rarely report it. 2% looks small, but $5 billion is not small. Workers are cutting hours. Families struggle. And the future looks even more uncertain ahead. The real worry is this shift is permanent. Once new ties form, it's hard returning. So we must ask, how will everyday Americans from Buffalo to Detroit feel this loss? Now let's visit border towns where many small dreams are slowly turning into daily struggles. Drive through on a weekend. Neon signs glow, but parking lots are half empty. The diners stay open, but insects buzz louder than customers eating meals inside. This is Buffalo, Detroit, and other northern border towns once busy with Canadian visitors. Tourists who filled tanks, bought clothes, and grabbed burgers have largely disappeared today. Canadian vehicles crossing dropped by 35%. Motels, gas stations, and shops began collapsing quickly. A bartender in Buffalo lost half his shifts. A Vermont hotel lost half its guests. For workers, these aren't numbers. They are lost rent, tuition, and retirement savings disappearing. One Buffalo family closed their bakery after 20 years. 60% of customers were Canadian. The pastries once sold out every Saturday morning. Now they sit unsold until being thrown away. The media ignores these losses, focusing instead on political fights between Washington and Ottawa. But the real victims are taxi drivers, cleaners, waiters, receptionists, and small shop owners. When Ottawa sneezes, Buffalo gets pneumonia. For many, this saying feels completely true today. Even worse, this isn't short-term. Once habits change, border towns may become ghost towns. So we must ask, is this temporary, or a sign of something deeper breaking? And if it continues, what if Canadians never come back to America again? We already see cancelled flights, closed bakeries, empty trains, and ghost-like tourist towns. But these are symptoms. The real sickness is broken trust. Trust is extremely hard to rebuild. Canadians still spend money and travel often. But they no longer choose the United States. Once habits form, they become permanent. New routines replace old ones and rarely reverse. Canada now trades with Europe and the UK. Canadians travel south to new places. For culture, they support local books, movies, and whiskey. America is no longer first choice. This reversal is silent but dangerous. Losing Canada means losing a loyal and stable market. Unlike distant partners, Canadians were reliable. They crossed often and spent consistently. Now America also faces an image problem. Canadians see the US as unfriendly. Parents tell kids Europe is more fun. Buying Canadian goods feels more patriotic. The next generation grows up without close ties to the US or its culture. When your best friend stops calling, maybe you were never as close as believed. So the question isn't how to bring them back, but if return is even possible. Now comes the unexpected twist. If Canada leaves, will Mexico replace its role? It sounds strange, but evidence shows it may already be happening across the US. While Canada builds ties with Europe and Mexico, more Mexican tourists visit America instead. Cities like Los Angeles, Houston, and San Diego already rely heavily on Mexican visitors. If Canadians stop coming, the US tourism industry may depend more on Mexico. This flips the old balance. The North was peaceful. The South was always tense. But in the future, American tourism might rely more on Mexico than on Canada. Imagine Arizona restaurants full of Mexican guests while Buffalo diners sit mostly empty. This makes politicians uneasy. Did America build the wall in the wrong place? Concrete walls can block people. But no wall can block the power of money. The economy invites people in. Spending ignores barriers and follows demand naturally. So is this a fair replacement? America loses one neighbor, depends on another complicated one. Did America truly lose a friend, or simply trade one neighbor for another? The American dream once meant Canadians crossing bridges, shopping carts full, or flying to Florida. Now those images are gone. Parking lots sit empty. Bakeries close. Towns struggle quietly. This isn't just trade or tourism. It's trust. And trust cannot be bought back. Now it's your turn. What is the best way to bring Canadian tourists back? Policy, economics, or culture? Share your thoughts in the comments section below today. If you found this video useful, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for updates. Remember, this video is analysis and commentary only. It's not political, legal, or financial advice. See this as a perspective for discussion, not a final conclusion. Thank you for watching.